Good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to day two of my Facebook Live, my 3-day Facebook Live event, what every woman with chronic illness must know. I want to thank you all for joining. I'm going to give people time to get in the chat and get in the room. I want to remind people that I am streaming from a platform called StreamYard. And if you want to comment in the chat, they will ask your permission. So if you would give them permission to put your name and picture in the chat. If you're coming in from Facebook, it's just one click. It's easy to do. We'd love to hear your comments. I am here to talk to you all and bring awareness about chronic illness. I'm also promoting my ebook, my free ebook, and I've already dropped it in the chat. It's 5 ways to deal with anxiety and depression due to chronic illness. So, yesterday, I was on with a guest host, and today I have two guests that will help me and talk about a chronic illness. My chronic illness is lupus. I'm going to give a recap, but we have in the room today Azaniah Israel. He's the principal consultant at Sirach Consulting, and his beautiful wife, May Shar Israel, digital marketing consultant with WSI World. So they are a powerhouse couple. They run businesses, they're entrepreneurs. We're going to get their perspective on a few things. But if you weren't able to join me yesterday, I just want to give a recap. My guest host was awesome. I was really here to talk about me, talk about what I do, who I serve, and why I do what I do. So I am Coach Grenay, and I help professional women who live with and suffer from chronic illnesses. And I aspire for them to have a better quality of life and also to have longevity in their career. So that's what I do. The results that I produce are confidence to help you advance in your career, to help you be an advocate for yourself. If you suffer from a chronic illness, an invisible chronic illness at that, people look at me and it's hard to believe that I am sick sometimes. I don't always feel the way I look, and we press anyhow. And so I'm here to deliver the blueprint of how professional women who suffer from chronic illness. Now, I suffer from systemic lupus or lupus, and I was diagnosed when I was 23 years old. So this year makes 25 years. It's going on a quarter of a century that I have been dealing with this. And in the meantime, I've been working and advancing in my career. When I was diagnosed, I was in graduate school. I was working on my master's degree. I had one semester left. I was actually on a graduate internship and I got really sick. And I was in the hospital for about 4.5 weeks, about 33 days or so. And it was a really tough time for me. And I had to navigate my whole life as a young woman. I had to reimagine what my career would look like. I spent 10 years post graduate school as a single woman. And 10 years later, I became a full time mom to two small children. I married a man who was widowed, and he had a 3-year old and a 2-week old baby when his first wife passed away. And and so I quickly became a wife and a full-time mom, and also I had to change jobs and I had to deal with my chronic illness. So it would be great for you guys to go back and replay day 1 so that you can hear more about my story. But right now, I'm going to jump in with my guests, Azaniah and Mayshar, and I'm going to have them introduce themselves and tell us a little bit about them.
All right. Well, thank you for having us, Coach Grenade. We appreciate you bringing us on. I really think that it's great that you're doing what you're doing, and I'm happy to be working with you. And as we were talking, a couple of days ago on Business Matters, you brought this up, and I said it would be great to have my wife on. And so, a little bit about me being the principal consultant with Sirach Consulting. I also, underneath that brand, we have WSI, which stands for We Simplify the Internet, where we focus on helping people like you, other entrepreneurs as well, business owners, market their business properly, have the right effectiveness toward their website, building their brand awareness, their online reputation, and actually using their advertising dollars effectively as well. And so we do those things in our community to help build that awareness. We have a lot of people who have great services, great products, but the world doesn't know about them. So our goal is to get them out of the shadow into the light so that the world can have the gift that you're renowned for bringing. And the gift that you're bringing is an excellent gift.
Thank you,
So,
Azaniah. I appreciate that.
so this is my wife, Mayshar. Say hello, Mayshar.
Hi, everyone. So I am Mayshar, as he mentioned. Some people call me May. Either one is fine. And so a part of our company with WSI, I handle most of the project management side of things. I also do a little bit of sales, come in and do some of the closing as well. But from the day-to-day matters of the business is typically what I take care of, and being able to help grow the team, making sure that all of our clients are taken care of from start to finish.
That sounds great. It sounds like you have a lot on your plate.
Oh, yeah.
So I know that you all have a family, and so you're running a business. You have two small children, and so much like myself, we all have a lot going on. I have one that's out of the house, one that's on his way out. He's a senior. And then I got about 5 more years with my teenager, with my 13-year-old. Lord, help me, please pray for me, y'all. So again, becoming an entrepreneur and juggling all the things that we have to juggle. So I am so blessed, and I'm full that Mayshar would actually come here in this space to be vulnerable about her chronic illness. So as Anaya said, we were talking business, we were talking strategy. And he just said, you know what? If you're planning something, let me talk to my wife, because she can come in and bless somebody and, also have a safe space, to talk about it. And then I said, well, Azaniah, well, what are you going to do? And he said, well, guess what? I live with her, and we can talk about, how chronic illness and the things that she goes through impacts him. Because I can guarantee you, while I sit here alone without my spouse, how my spouse experiences me is different than what my coworkers may see or what my friends may see. So it is incredibly it's a great dynamic. And again, I'm happy to have you both here. So again, I shared that I was diagnosed with lupus about 25 years ago. I am blessed to have been a lupus patient. Most of my symptoms are, I don't know if you would call them typical, but since I was 23 years old, I've had arthritis in my hands. I've had them in my knees and my arms. The biggest thing is the fatigue. And fatigue, as I explained yesterday, is very different from, oh, I just didn't get enough sleep or I'm just tired. Fatigue is actually when your brain tells your body to do something and your body responds in slow motion. I explain it like walking through quicksand with bricks on your back. It is difficult. And can you imagine as a 23-year-old, a 24-year-old, 25-year-old, people look at you and they diminish. Well, you're too young, to be sick. You're too young, I walk slow. I don't move fast at all. There are certain weather that affect me, and we're used to hearing the old people say it's gonna rain because my knees hurt. Well, that was me when I was 30 years old. So, these are, and then even, as women and even as Black women, when you go to get medical help, I went to the hospital several times and they thought I was drug seeking because they looked at me, as a young adult and like, you can't possibly be in this much pain. So, I know many women have many stories to tell. So, Mayshar, if you can tell us about yourself, a little bit more about yourself, your family life, and your invisible chronic illness, including when you were diagnosed and how it affects you.
Oh, man. Okay, where do we start with that?
It's a loaded question. I'm sorry for the loaded question, but you can let it flow.
Oh, no, you're fine. It's an interesting one. So I am the second oldest out of 6 children. I was
Mm.
born and raised in down South Georgia. Shout out to everybody that's down there in Savannah. How
All
y'all
right
doing?
now.
That's right, C4. Anyway, let me chill out. So, with growing up in my family, my parents always labeled me as the outgoing, outspoken child, even though that's not who I see myself as being today. And throughout the time, I kind of dealt with that, but I noticed in school, I would have some issues with being able to take a test. Other people would sit there, they would thrive, they would take a test, no problem. But then I would have moments where I would almost have a panic attack in the class, and it was because I was hearing things in the testing environment that was not sitting well with me. I could hear people swallowing.
Mm.
I could hear the tapping. I could hear somebody breathing across the room. It's
Mhm.
like all the sounds were just amplified, and it caused a lot of anxiety with me. So I had testing anxiety. That's what I just kind of brushed it off as. And I figured the only way that I was able to really take the test and ace it, because back in school, I ended up having somewhat of a photographic memory. So I could sit there, memorize everything, and make it 100, but it was under the right circumstances in order for me to be able to take the test and be able to do that. I
I
had to
see.
be off in a corner by
Mm.
myself. I had to be facing a wall where I can't see everybody. And I'm not focused on the sound of anything else. But if I focused on the sound of like the humming of the air conditioner, for example,
Mhm.
or my own tapping of a pen, then that's when I was able to kind
Mm.
of hyper focus on that and be able to ace the test. But if I'm
Right.
focusing on other people and the other things that are in my environment, it wouldn't help at all. So
Mhm.
as I progress in life, I'm still going through these different struggles. Then all of a sudden I get married, I start having children, and the stressors are getting more and more heavy in my life. And it gets to a point where I'm like, I can't function. I
Mm.
can't think. And it was so much so I'm like, everybody has moments where they can't focus, they get off track. But for me, it was so detrimental to my life to where if he asked me to do something, I couldn't remember to do it or it just wouldn't get done. And
Okay.
so people would always say to me, even my parents are like, "You're way too young to be forgetting like this. You got the mind of an 80-year-old person."
Yes. Yes. That's it right there.
It's like the things that we go through are so much more intense. And then it took me to the point where we were really butting heads about stuff getting done in the house, me zoning out and not being able to function and be able to comprehend certain things that was going on. And I said, you know what, something's really wrong with me. So one day I'm scrolling on Facebook. Next thing you know, random page that just pops up in my timeline. And it's a bunch of memes that are related to ADHD. And I'm like, what's this? So I go and I start looking at the page and everything that's on it. And although it's meant to be funny, but educational, I'm like, I resonate with every single last one of these
Mm.
things that these people are talking about and how detrimental it is to their life. So I started looking more into it and going and start finding the scientific definitions of it and what all it entailed. And I was like, wow, this is so different than what I always thought ADHD was growing up. Because typically when you see someone that has ADHD, you're like, oh, that's that hyper kid that's over there that's bouncing off the wall.
Right.
They need to be on Ritalin. They need to be, their parents giving them too much candy. But I didn't know that there was so many different levels to ADHD. So I had told my husband, I said, I think I have ADHD. I think there's something more to what's going on. He was like, are you sure? Are you self-diagnosing yourself? What's going on? And I'm like, I don't know. I'm like, I think we need to go and check this out. So we made a final decision after tossing over like maybe a month or so. And then next thing you know, we went and saw an actual psychiatrist, got the testing done. It was a grueling test. And that's how I'm like, the test, they didn't even have to give me my results yet. I already knew. I'm like, based on what they had me going through, they're going to come back and tell me I got it.
Mhm.
That man came back during that test result and he said, okay, Miss Israel, here's what we got.
Mm.
You have ADHD. You have combined ADHD, and you are in the 70th percentile of it.
Oh, wow.
I was
Oh,
like,
wow.
oh. So I had to really internalize the fact that not only did I have it, but I had it on a much more extreme level than what I thought.
Okay.
And at that point, that's when the identity crisis came in. I spent how long crying and trying to
You
figure
still
out.
crying now.
Oh, wow.
You
So
still
I like that word. You do have an identity crisis when you are first diagnosed with something
Mhm.
because you're trying to figure out, well, who am I? You know,
Yes,
who am I right now?
my
You know,
whole
and
life was a lie.
yeah, yeah. And so, like, even in my program, I call it RAD. It's realization, acceptance, and disruption. And
Mhm,
basically, when you first hear the diagnosis, the initial reaction is like a loss for words. You
mhm.
know, you the reaction is normal, but it's like you're like, who am I? And it
Exactly.
is a identity crisis. And I love that you said that.
Yeah, it's like, wow, you mean to tell me I went my entire life having this, not knowing that I had it. And had I known, had my parents recognized it when I was in middle school or even in high school, even elementary, if they noticed it back then, how much better of a life or quality of life could I have
Mhm.
had they been able to identify it at such an early age and getting
Right.
me the proper, counseling or the proper one-on-one tutoring, different things of that matter, because I was always in advanced placement classes, but again, it was under certain stipulations. One of the things that I loved about the advanced placement classes that I was in is that it was much smaller. It wasn't a
Mm.
whole lot of students in it as it would be in normal classes. So,
Mhm.
and the teachers, they took a more personal approach. But when I got out of classes like that, all the distractions came back in. I couldn't focus. I couldn't do anything. Everything was just going haywire. And so I had to relearn myself. I had to relearn my life because one of the things that I do that is really frustrating for him is not just the memory portion and not remembering certain things, but it's also executive dysfunctioning where I don't know how to, it's like I know what to do. I could tell you exactly what to do, but for me to start the project, it takes me moving mountains to be able to
Right.
do it.
You feel stuck.
So,
You
oh
feel
yeah,
like yeah, it's almost like a paralysis.
exactly. It's
I
time
mean,
paralysis.
I am easily overwhelmed
Hmm.
and not like I used to be though. It's like it's changing a little bit. And I feel you and I even just putting away laundry when it looks to be too much, it's like, okay, this is too much. Maybe I'll just put like a sheet
Hmm.
over it, over the basket, and I'll pretend like it's not there.
why are you laughing so hard, Miss Shaw?
You guys done that so many
It's too
times.
much. It is
See,
you feel overwhelmed and you become paralyzed. You can't do
Exactly.
anything. And so one of the tools that I use, and I'll just share this with you and everybody, is that I try to do things in bite sizes, right?
Yes.
Um, if it particularly when it comes to, keeping the house and doing different things, I'll do a section of the room and then I'll have to kind of sit down and go, do something else. And then I'll
Mhm.
come back and then I'll clear another section. But when I look at things, on a whole, I become paralyzed and then I have to step back, sit down, and figure out how to break it down in my mind because my body won't move. You're
Exactly.
paralyzed.
Exactly. And you have to, one of the things that I've had to learn to do as well, and some people they don't see the importance of it, but for me, of course, because I'm the one that's going through it, I have to express it. But you have to be able to find little ways to reward yourself in between time
Mm,
because it allows that dopamine. And that's another thing. We people who have ADHD, like myself, we lack dopamine or we have too much of it going on at one time. So like when it's not constantly coming in, it's like, I don't want to do this task. I don't want to do this chore.
exactly.
And
Well,
so
make
your
sure
mind
you're getting
starts
ahead of
to
yourself. That's my topic for tomorrow, actually.
oh!
It's rewarding yourself. So in my book, 5 Ways to Deal with Anxiety and Depression.
Mhm,
Um, I'm sure most people know that you can have both, or it could be mutually exclusive. You can
mhm.
have one or the other. And so one of the things in my book that I do talk about is finding ways to reward yourself for what seems like little things to other people, but it's
Yeah.
big things for us because
Yes.
sometimes, people, particularly when you're in a depressive state, just taking a shower is a thing. It really is. Just getting out of bed and taking a shower. And if that's all you've accomplished for that day, depending on where you are in that spectrum, that is huge. And,
Mhm.
whether you reward yourself, with the cookie, or whether you reward yourself with those earrings that you saw online. But that is actually what I'm talking about tomorrow. Because today, and I didn't say this up front, I'm glad that you're sharing your story, and we're going to jump back into it. But
Mhm.
as we're talking about fatigue and overwhelm and all of that, one of the things I really hit home and talk about and try to get people real uncomfortable about is getting the proper amount of sleep.
Oh
And
man.
resting and sleeping are completely two different things.
Mhm.
We have to be in rapid eye movement sleep. We have to,
Yes.
our brains have to sleep in order to repair our bodies at a cellular level.
Mhm.
And the average American does not get enough sleep. And it actually comes back to haunt you. I am not a physician. People can do their own research, but there have been studies done linking sleep to heart disease and even death, and weight loss and weight gain. I have a
Oh,
friend who lost over 100 pounds, and he tracks how much weight he gains and loses by how much sleep he gets. And he
what?
has to have a minimum of 8 hours sleep, and that's a minimum. And so in
Mhm.
today's world where we're always turned on, um,
Mhm.
that is very difficult to do. And especially in your stage of life, because I've been there when you have young children.
Mhm.
Babies are babies. We just have to suffer through that. But even kids from 3 to 6 are still waking up in the middle of the night saying, "Mommy, I'm
Oh,
scared," or "Mommy, I need some water." That still goes on. And I'm beyond that. And even getting beyond that, you have the dynamic of the spouse, the person that sleeps next to you, that may not sleep, that may not be
mhm.
quiet. They might move a lot, they might snore very loudly. And so I'm giving ways in the book to set boundaries, and a few ways that people can try to get some sleep. So I want to get back to you. And you shared your story and how you were diagnosed and how you felt like you were having identity crisis, but I would have to
Mhm.
imagine that you also felt a little bit of relief that you weren't
Oh,
crazy, right? That
yes.
I haven't been crazy since I was 7. You know what I
Yes.
mean?
Mm.
It was a validation. It was a relief. And you said that you were diagnosed with ADHD, and I you know I have a son who was diagnosed as well. So I would like to know from you, what do you think most people get wrong about
Mm.
ADHD, and what you would like people to know?
There's so many. Some of the more common ones that I hear is there's people that's kind of going on the rant of because there's been an uptick in people being diagnosed with ADHD that oh
Mhm.
it's a construct of the mind or it's something that somebody made up. And I'm like, for a person who can raise their hand and say that they have it and have had it really their whole life, I wish that were true. I
Mhm.
really wish that that was something that was made up and something that we could just get over. But
Mhm.
it's literally a dysfunction of the brain.
Mhm.
It's a chemical thing that's going on in your mind, and that's not something that you can just wish away or think that it's not going to happen or that it can't happen to anyone. And what other people don't realize is that ADHD is actually genetic. My
Mm.
parents, more than likely, at least one of my parents has it, and whether they know it or not. There are certain things that I witnessed about my parents that now that I understand what ADHD is in its fullness, I can see it. I'm not going to point out which one it is, but I can definitely see it in them. And so I just wish that people would stop trying to make it as seem as if it doesn't exist because
Mhm.
it is. I think it's something that people need to just take the moment to really learn what it is, talk to somebody who has it, and really see what struggles that person goes through because each person that has ADHD, my symptoms and how I go through things and how I see life is going to be different from the next person that has ADHD, even if we have the same level of diagnosis, because there's different levels to it. Mine is combined. So that means I have both the inattentive side as well as the hyperactive side. However, what people see is that now I'm not very hyperactive on the outside, but my mind is. My mind is constantly going. What I try to explain to people is if you were able to step into my mind, it's as if I have 20,000 tabs open on a computer and they're all playing the sound.
That's an excellent analogy. I might have to steal that from you. So as Anaya, I have a question for you. So when did you start to notice her symptoms, and was this something brought to your attention, or did she immediately bring it to your attention maybe when you started dating or after you got married?
Well, unfortunately, I didn't recognize it till after we got married. So the thing about it is, it was after a couple years of marriage that I came to the realization that something is wrong as well. So when she made mention earlier that she came to me and said, I think I should go get tested for this, we were already beginning to butt heads, and it was causing problems because I couldn't figure out why certain things were going a certain way, and we were not being able to progress in fixing those things. So one thing that I had to learn, and I would love if you expound upon it, Ms. Shaw, motivation being such a key, certain things can be hidden in the beginning through that motivation or masking. And then after a little bit of comfort sets in, or the lack of motivation sets in, then it comes out and exposes itself. So it's like things were good in the beginning, but there came a point in time where things shifted, and I'm like, wait a minute, this is not who I married.
Okay.
Yeah. The dopamine levels are definitely, high whenever you're going through like a new experience. Like, let's take moving. We just moved. That's a good example. When you first move, there's the excitement of, oh, I got a new house. I'm going to decorate. I'm going to paint the walls. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And then once you start getting settled in and all the boxes come in and then the chores start coming in with it, you get overwhelmed, and then it becomes very hard for you to keep up that level of excitement. So same thing kind of happened in the marriage. Everything was fresh and exciting, but then as the trials and the tribulations started coming in, you got outside influences, children and different things like that coming in and eating up your time, eating up your focus, and making you just exhausted. It becomes very daunting to, put the effort in to do certain things. So you kind of lose that touch. And so it's unfortunate. It's not something that we want to do. But again, scriptures also tell us about there be trouble in the flesh. And that is our trouble in the flesh. That's the cross that we're having to bear and figure out how to overcome it.
So, as Anaya, in what ways do you support Mayshar in this journey, and what ways do you have to adjust?
Well, first, educating myself, because my thought process on what ADHD is doesn't fit what we now know due to the diagnosis and then the advancement of technology and understanding. When I was growing up, ADHD was just more of a behavioral problem.
That's
a lack of discipline, a lack of structure, and the things that would fix that in many cases was putting someone in a more disciplined environment. There was a time frame where it was thought that maybe I had ADHD or ADD, which sometimes are used interchangeably, but there are differences between the two. And the thing that fixed me is just having more challenging work in school and more opportunity to utilize my mind, as opposed to being in an environment where I was sitting bored. I was just bored. That was my issue. And so educating myself was the first thing. I'm beginning to unpack all of the thoughts that I had about it and then relearn it all unbiased.
Right.
To support, I have to, step out of myself sometimes and just try to see it in her shoes and figure out ways that I can not make it worse and exacerbate the problem, and then pick up where we leave off. As a partner, we have to figure out how we can help support each other.
Right. And then to kind of go into that a little bit more, one of the things that he helps me with that people don't realize that people have with ADHD is emotional regulation. So for me, I have to, I can be upset about something, which could be something that a normal person would be upset about, But for me, it's the level of upset that I may get when the situation may happen. So sometimes I have to verbally talk it out with him. And it's like talking to myself, but I'm talking to him. And he allows me to be able to kind of process the situation, even if it's not an anger situation, but just processing the situation entirely so that I can understand, should I be upset about this right now? Should I be nervous about this? Am I overthinking something? Because I can't do it a lot of times on my own. Okay. So that's where he helps me come in and be able to provide that balance and being able to shift my focus back in a more positive direction.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that. I mean, again, my spouse isn't here, but he's really, great with that. The discussion that I had to have with my husband in the beginning, again, my husband's first wife passed away 2 weeks after giving birth to their second son. So my husband had a healthy wife for all intents and purposes, and that circumstance happened to him. So as we were considering dating each other, before we even could say we go together, I had to have this discussion with him. Like, I don't know what this is going to look like in 10 years. I don't. But this is my situation. I do have a chronic illness, and these are some of my challenges. I am healthy. I am working. I am able to function, but it's hard. And particularly when I was single, my strategies to get through were a little different because, if I don't work, I don't eat. Because I was a single woman. I had to get up and drag myself to work, or sometimes take extra time off. I'd go on vacation, and I talked about being in the sun. The sun is not my friend for lupus. It took me a long time to learn that and listen to my doctors. But I'd go on vacation and I'd come back sick and have to take more time off from being sick. I'd need rest and recover from my vacation. So, to talk to him that way, like, look, you are choosing, this is what I come with, right? You are a victim of circumstance, and, but this is what I come with. And, he was willing to learn and, and understand. And we were able to work that through somewhat as we were dating. And, obviously, like you said, there are other stressors. I went from 0 to 100 in like 10 seconds. It was just me and the dog. I had a puppy that I cared for. And then when I got married, I had a 6.5-year-old and a 3-year-old. I was a full-time mom. I was not a part-time mom. I was not a stepmom. I was not a weekend mom. So it was me, the 2 boys, my husband, and the dog. And 7 months later, I was pregnant. So then there were 3, plus the dog. So it went really fast, and I was blessed. I have a really good partner. He supported me in my pregnancy. I was high risk for a variety of reasons. Number one, believe it or not, because I was 34, getting ready to turn 35, and 35 is the magic number for women. So I was high risk just because of that, and plus the lupus. And, the support that the spouse brings when they are willing to unlearn things that they might have had in their head about it. I run into people all the time. I go and they say, "Oh, you have lupus." "Oh, I know somebody who died." You kind of get that. And, people think you can't have children or a normal life, and you can. But, I had to be willing to make some changes, though. I had to make some serious changes myself, moving from my 20s into my 30s, and then the responsibilities of, caring for children. It was no longer just about me. I needed to be healthy and make some healthy changes, because now I'm responsible, for a lot. So, which kind of gets me into the topic that I like to call the fun and uncomfortable topic, because my sleep is so critical for me. Because, like, if I go 2 nights in a row without getting sleep because I'm anxious about something, or something big is happening, I can't move my body parts. Like, sometimes my arm doesn't work, or sometimes my knee swells up so big it looks like a helmet or something is on my knee. So my body tells me every time when I haven't had enough sleep. So when I got beyond, my last child, probably being about 6 or 7 years old, then what it was really about is my husband and the person I slept next to. It became just about that. So,
Mhm.
most nights, I try to always start in the room, but that's only if I go to sleep first. If
Mhm.
I go to sleep first, 9.5 times out of 10, he's gonna wake me up, or my bladder's gonna wake me up. Either way, once I wake up, I can't finish in there. I have to go to the other room. I have to go to where it's dark, where it's quiet, where my mind can relax. Because even if I get up to empty my bladder and go to the bathroom, I'm in my head like, oh my God, is he gonna move? Oh my God, is he snoring? I'm not gonna be able to go back to sleep. I try not to look at
Mhm.
the clock, but you do. It's 4 o'clock, it's 3 o'clock in the morning. I gotta get up. You're in your head. And so I have to typically come finish the night in the other room so that I can really get some interrupted sleep. And if you can get up and go to the bathroom and get right back to sleep, obviously that's ideal. And I can
Right.
do that as long as I know I can go somewhere and finish my sleep. So I get a lot of questions all the time, like how does that work? And I'm like, y'all have no idea how common that is.
Mhm.
People have to sleep. Grandma and grandpa sleep in separate rooms only because they can't stand each other snoring. It has
Mhm.
nothing to do with intimacy. It has nothing to do with sex. It has nothing to do with any of that. It's plenty of people who lay next to each other every night, and their marriage is dead, or there's no intimacy at all.
Right.
But when you have a real strong boundary, my husband understands that we have to do what works.
Mhm.
And if I have to leave the room at some point because I know I'm not going to go back to sleep, we have to have that discussion like, babe, please don't take it personal, but I have to go to sleep. So he's very supportive in that. And so um we make it work. And I'm interested to know, what are some of the things that you do so that you can get the proper amount of sleep?
Oh my goodness. That right there is a extreme topic for me because he knows if I don't get at least 7.5 hours of sleep, I am done. I am through dealing. And now that we're expecting and whatever, it's even more extreme. I'm finding myself falling asleep at my desk. He called
Mm.
me the other night. What was I doing? I finished up dinner and I was over there slumped over my plate.
It is bad. It's bad.
It was terrible. But sleep is a very, very important thing. And like you mentioned, there's the different dynamics between how I sleep and how he sleeps and how we have to try to get to sleep. For
Mhm.
him, I jokingly say it, but I'm also like dead serious at the same time. This man can go to sleep anywhere.
Oh, that's my husband. It's like narcolepsy.
It's bad.
It ain't that.
He will go to sleep, like he'll be talking to you, like, and then the game,
Yeah, he
he
could
just
be he go to
don't.
sleep while he's talking to you.
Yes. And I'm like,
I
how do
know.
you do that? But for me, again, having ADHD and having 20,000 tabs open with noise going on every single last one of them, it takes me a little bit longer and it takes more
Mhm.
intention for
Yep.
me to go to sleep. I have to be
Yep.
very intentional
Yep.
about going to sleep. So for me, I have to do things like mindfulness. I have to
Mhm.
try to get that breathing technique in and focus in on that.
Yeah.
We have adjustable beds, so it also has that massage button in there. So it has this constant noise that I'm able to focus on sometimes, and sometimes I have to turn that on in order for me to go to sleep. But for him, oh my gosh, if he can be in there knocked out, snoring to high moon,
Which never happens.
it
I don't
does.
do that.
If I could play footage right now of how he sleeps, you would understand what I'm saying. But he be in there just peacefully sleeping. If my soul comes around a corner in the room, he will wake up.
Oh
Wake
man.
smooth up. So I have to make sure that whenever I come into the room, I'm trying to come in there as gracefully and as quiet as I possibly can, and then try to find the best method to do my mindfulness to get myself to shut down and go to sleep. But when
Mhm.
I do go to sleep, I'm knocked out. That's the
Mm.
good thing about it. I will sleep through an alarm, a bomb can go off, and
Now see, now I'm jealous. I'm jealous because I'm not opposite. I have an issue with going to sleep, and staying asleep. That's why if I was like you, I would never have to leave the room, right? If I was like you, but because I'm easily awakened, like you, like if my husband just moves or turns in the bed, I'm up. And it's over for me. I either have to figure out plan B or I'm just
Yeah.
gonna be up all night. And so, it's one of those things, like I said, if I go to sleep first, I'm usually in there for half the night. If he goes to sleep first, I kind of sneak away. I kind of make sure he's, nice and sleep, and then I kind of slink off to
Yeah.
the other room. But my husband, bless his heart, I love him so much. He says, "Well, Cornea, sometimes I have a hard time sleeping without you." And it's when he notices I'm gone. So a lot of times when he notices, whatever that may be, when he notices that I'm not there, he's up, and then, he's up and he's turned on the TV because I'm not there. And so, it's something that we, have to, reassure each other. And, I try to get in the room every morning with him and try to spend that time with him, before he goes to work. I work from home, and I'm home, and his schedule can be whatever, most days. And so we do get that time, and especially on the weekends, because I promise you, it really is about sleep. I gotta sleep. Not sleeping is not an option. So whatever you have to do. And I agree with you, that mindfulness, trying to get ready, to shut your mind down is really important. And getting rid of, all these, staying off the phone, making sure that, and for me, it just depends. I get hot. I have to be in a room where it's cool. I have to have a lot of things in order to be able to sleep.
If it's hot, I can't.
I know. And so, some of the tips that I give in the book, please look, get the book, download it. It's really to create a pattern. If you could try to get to sleep every night within 60 minutes of the same time, empty your bladder before you go to bed, take any pain medication, especially when you have a chronic illness. And this is advice, whether you have a chronic illness or not, stay off your devices and, set boundaries, however you can. Because for women with chronic illnesses, and we have to work and we have to take care of home, we have to have our rest and our sleep, and having a supportive spouse is just everything. It just makes it, it makes it everything. It makes us work. It really does. Cause I don't know. Cause I'm like, I don't know who created the rules, about sleeping, but we have to create our own rules and able to function.
We do, and it's funny that you say that, because going back into the spouse support, he has to come in and be like my calendar, my alarm, like, hey, you should be trying to go to bed at this point, because we do have to set. He sets boundaries for me sometimes, and I have to also set them myself. So like if it's getting to a certain point, because my sweet spot is if I go to sleep at 11 o'clock or earlier. That I get up at 6 o'clock in the morning. So that allows me to be able to get a good amount of sleep in and be able to function the next day. Because for me, if I don't get enough sleep, and it happens consistently, because again, with the tabs, if I can't shut those tabs down and go to sleep, I will end up being somewhat an insomniac and not go to sleep at all.
Right.
And that's definitely detrimental to my health, bodily function, especially the mental clarity, because with the ADHD, you have to have that mental sharpness in order for you to be able to function. Otherwise, you're going to crash and you're going to be a hot mess to yourself and to everybody else. And I can't do that because I have a family and a business to run. But when it comes down to it, he'll be like, hey, it's time. It's almost time to go to bed. You need to go to sleep. You make sure you're doing this, doing that. So for me, if it's like coming up on like maybe 9:30, 10 o'clock or so, and the dishes ain't been done in the kitchen yet, I'm sorry, but them dishes gonna have to sit there till tomorrow.
Oh, I love that you said that, because that is me. That is me. They ain't going nowhere. They'll be all right, because I'm going to bed.
Because if I try to stay up and do these dishes, because for me, I have to do it a certain way. I gotta go and take the hottest of the hot water and get all the crumbs and stuff off of it. It has to be in there a certain way, and Then I gotta start it. You gotta wipe this down, wipe that down. It's a whole chore. I don't have time to do that.
Well,
But
wait till
here's-
your kids get big enough to do it. Then there you go.
Yes.
But Renee, I want to see if you can offer any advice in your book about this. So she has to go to bed by 11, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if I don't say anything, she'll shoot right through that. It'll be 2 a.m. and she still won't go to bed. And I'm like, you know, you're gonna have a problem tomorrow, but yet you're not putting yourself in position for success.
Executive dysfunction.
Well, that's why the advice in my book is to go to bed at the same time every night. You do put whatever you have to put in place. Say, hey, the news is on. I don't know if you all are TV people or keep the TV on. You know, that's like a trigger for me. You know, my husband is a news junkie, and you know, he likes talk radio, he loves news. And so when the news comes on, that's kind of the key for me to start winding down. Now, I take it a little further. I like to watch the first 10 minutes of Stephen Colbert. So usually my sweet spot is about 11:30-ish, 11:40. I'm drifting off. And my husband fusses at me. He's like, well, you told me to put the channel on so you could watch this and you went to sleep, you know? And so my sweet spot is like around about 11:30, 11:45. And I usually sleep until 7:15. You know, my son wakes me up because when I have to go to the other room, it backs up to their bathroom. And so I usually sleep till about 7 or 7:15, and I really try to get those as close to 8 hours as I can. But timing and triggers for me, you know, is to trigger for me up. It's time to shut it down. It's time to shut it down and shut it down quick. And sometimes I use sleep aids, you know, like the melatonin, particularly on the weekends, because your mind does different things when you know you have a Monday through Friday routine. You got to work, you got to this, but sleep is way different and way better when you know you ain't got to get up in the morning. When you know you have that freedom to just kind of chill out, even if it's just for a little bit, you know, sleep is different.
A few more moments to rub your feet together up underneath the covers, and you're good.
Right. It's different. And even for me and my husband, you know, now that, you know, obviously I passed through y'all stage of life, but the stage of life we in is, you know, don't even come knock on the door. Everybody could cook, everybody could feed themselves. And so we could lay in the bed until 10, 11 o'clock in the morning, you know, given we don't have anything to do. Y'all can't do that yet. Y'all can't do that yet. Y'all waiting on somebody to get. Are y'all waiting on somebody to get old enough to go to the refrigerator and pour y'all something to drink?
Yes. Yeah. We waiting on it to happen. You know, and I wanted to say something real quick about the timing, because you mentioned that you try to get that 8 hours in as best as possible. And you know, there was a book. What was the name of that book that you were reading?
Sleep Smarter or Spark?
It was probably Sleep Smarter, where they were talking about the optimal times for people to get sleep. It was the 6 hours, 7.5 hours, or 9 hours.
Yeah, it was going into the circadian rhythm.
Yeah,
like you were speaking about the REM cycles. And so if you come in the middle of one of those REM cycles, it wasn't worth you sleeping that long.
Right.
Yeah. So for me, Monday through Friday, I try to get 7.5 hours of sleep. But on the weekends, if I can get there 9 hours.
I know, I hear you. I'm with you on that. And I struggled.
Yeah.
I will tell you, I struggled when my kids were young because I have boys and we put them in sports. And so the young ones play earliest, right? So they got soccer at 8 a.m. So an 8 a.m. soccer game means your lead time is at minimum 1.5 hours to 2 hours. So I'm up at 6 o'clock, 6:30 on a Saturday to prepare, you know, for the game for the youngest one. And then we got run here for the next one, you know, and football and all that stuff. So when they were younger, it was tough. Weekends were really tough. Weekends were not for fun, you know, were not for relaxing, put it like that. They were really not, you know, we did a lot of sports, we did a lot of family time, which was great. We used to love to go to festivals with the kids, you know, when it was, you know, warm. But sleep was like when they were younger. So I have older ones, so I'm trying to get it together. So look, I'm gonna wrap this up. We are almost at 50 minutes, and I do want to talk about what I'm going to be talking about tomorrow, which is what you said earlier about rewarding yourself. That's what I have in
Yes.
my book, my ebook, 5 Ways to Deal with Anxiety and Depression. If you are, if you even depression is a chronic illness. People can be chronically depressed. They're medicated for it, and even anxiety. That's huge among college students and really high performing high school students, and going into college, and young people. And we have so much stimulation. The stimulation is just out of control. It wasn't like that when I was, I've been out of high school for 31 years, and I'm not even 30 yet, but y'all could do that math later.
Yeah.
But we didn't have that much stimulation. And so anxiety and depression is a real thing that people really suffer from. And so we have to find ways, like you said, to trigger that dopamine, to,
Mhm.
to reward ourselves, even for the smallest things. I had a client who told me one time that all she wanted to do was change her pajamas, and just, to get out of one pair of pajamas and into another was a big deal for her because of what she was going through. And we do have to find ways to reward ourselves. And so that's what we'll be talking about tomorrow. I'll be alone. I'll be by myself. I don't have any guests tomorrow, but I am just so happy. You have no idea. I'm so happy that both of you were here. We had a very important conversation, being vulnerable about your individual challenges as well as your marital challenges. That is huge. I know that somebody listening to this, or someone who will listen to this, will take a lot away from that. And I'm just thankful that you all came on with me today.
It was a
And
pleasure.
and I am going to wrap this up. But please, everybody, if you're on or if you replay this later, join me for day 3 tomorrow. What every woman with chronic illness must know. These are very important topics. We have tips. I have my book. You can click on the link and download the book. So if you didn't catch yesterday's, please replay it. It's on my personal page, Cornea Salone. It's on Authentically You, and it's also streaming on YouTube, introducing Coach Cornea. And I would love for everyone to come out for the 3rd day tomorrow. So I am going to sign off here and thank my guests again, Mayshar and Azaniah. You guys are awesome. I really appreciate you. You are a blessing. And if you have any final words, please go right ahead. Go, go, go.
Yeah. First of all, if you are someone like me that has ADHD or any type of chronic illness, learn to laugh and to love on yourself, and to just also not take yourself too seriously sometimes, because laughter and getting through this and just joking about it is a good way to help you overcome some of the hurdles as well.
Absolutely. I agree with that. She lets me pick on her all the time, and she doesn't take it to heart anymore. It's all fun and games and help us get through it. And, laughter makes the relationship better.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Exactly.
good. Well, thank you for those parting words. So you guys have a good rest of your day, and
Okay.
I'll talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
See ya.
See you later.
Bye.